The hum of engines roars like a distant storm. She stands still, a silent force wrapped in calm precision, watching as the crowd parts, not out of respect, but discomfort. The boarding gate gleams under sterile light, the scent of metal and jet fuel hanging thick. Her ticket glints in her hand, proof of belonging, yet the attendant's eyes hesitate, flicking upward with the weight of disbelief. A single pause, a subtle shift, and suddenly, the world feels smaller than it should. Voices rise behind her, whispers crawl across the terminal floor. The gate agent's tone cuts, smooth yet poisonous, cloaked in false courtesy. "Ma'am, this section is reserved," she exhales, steady as steel. The moment fractures, not with rage, but revelation. That power doesn't always wear a badge or carry a briefcase. Sometimes it simply stands its ground, refusing to move, while the world learns who it just tried to underestimate. The flight hums with whispers, the kind that carry judgment through the air vents. She sits at the edge of the aisle, the hum of engines beneath her heels. Every glance feels like a question she never volunteered to answer. Yet, there is something magnetic in her restraint. The way she stirs cream into coffee without a tremor, how her gaze remains forward, unshaken. The world watches her, waiting for outrage, but all they find is control. Outside the cabin window, clouds break into gold veins of sunlight, indifferent to human cruelty. Somewhere between turbulence and stillness, a truth forms. That silence can roar, louder than protest when the world refuses to listen. There's a tremor in the air as the captain's voice hums overhead, a hollow politeness over hidden tension. The attendant's smile falters each time she passes the aisle, her conscience tugging at invisible threads. Heels click softly, a rhythm of avoidance. The murmurs have turned digital, messages flying between passengers, hashtags forming midair. Yet she remains anchored, her posture defying every unspoken slight. Her phone lights up not with anger but opportunity, a message from an ally waiting on the ground. Some storms, she knows, don't destroy, they reveal. Somewhere between silence and dissent, power shifts. The seatbelt sign dings, but no one moves. The world outside the window rolls in streaks of white cloud and twilight blue, infinite and untouchable. Inside, she's already rewriting the script. Every humiliation now a blueprint for victory. Her hand rests over her phone, thumb hovering above a drafted message. The engine's growl becomes a drumbeat of defiance. They think they ended her dignity at the gate. They've only announced her beginning. The plane touches down and the city awakens beneath her. Lights scatter like constellations, a map of decisions waiting to be made. She steps off the aircraft without a word, her silence the sharpest statement of all. Cameras flash, questions spill like rain, but she walks through them untouched. Somewhere, a post has gone viral. Somewhere, a system begins to tremble. What was once humiliation is now ignition. The next move is hers. Morning arrives like a blade. The sun splits between skyscrapers, cutting gold against glass. Her phone trembles with notifications, thousands of strangers breathing fury in digital rhythm. Screens flicker, posts multiply. Her name turned into both war cry and symbol. She reads none of them. Instead, she studies silence. The quiet before chaos. Somewhere in a corporate tower, boardrooms stir, voices rising in panic, trying to crush a story already beyond their control. In the hum of the city, power rearranges itself. Her humiliation is no longer her burden, it's their scandal. And though she hasn't spoken a word, the world has already chosen her side. In a distant boardroom, panic wears designer suits. Executives crowd a long glass table, each speaking over the other, voices echoing like gunfire. They call it an incident, a PR oversight, a training issue. But no one says the word that poisons every breath: discrimination. Somewhere, a lawyer flips through contracts. A PR head drafts apologies that taste like ash. Across the screen, her face loops silently. Calm, unbothered, undeniable. They don't realize yet that this isn't damage control, it's reckoning. Some wars begin with silence, others with a click. He watches his post climb into virality, comments flooding faster than he can read. There's no turning back now. He didn't mean to become part of a movement, but the truth rarely asks for permission. Each share is a spark, each repost a weapon. Somewhere, algorithms twist into justice, forcing a company to answer to the court of conscience. And as the world scrolls in outrage, he sits in a quiet cafe, sipping lukewarm coffee, knowing history sometimes uploads itself. The airline releases a statement. It's polished, rehearsed, hollow. We regret the misunderstanding. Words shaped by lawyers, not empathy. The internet tears it apart in minutes, dissecting every syllable. Meanwhile, she doesn't respond. Not yet. She's building something quieter, sharper. Her silence is strategy, her timing immaculate. While they scramble to defend the indefensible, she drafts something the world isn't ready for. Not an apology, but an evolution. By nightfall, the city hums with energy, protest, solidarity, outrage. In office windows and apartment screens, her face becomes a reflection of every quiet injustice endured. Yet, in her apartment, she stands alone before a glowing laptop. The cursor blinks like a heartbeat. Her message is simple, deliberate, unstoppable. Some tickets cost more than money. Some seats were never meant to be denied. She hits send. The world inhales, then ignites. The glass tower waits like a fortress. She enters without announcement, the marble echo of her heels slicing through silence. Every receptionist glances up, unsure whether to greet or to flee. Upstairs, behind tinted conference doors, they're preparing to meet their mistaken human form. What they don't know, she's not here for revenge. She's here for the future. The air is cold, air-conditioned arrogance pressing against her skin. Every insult, every stare, every word unsaid, all distilled into purpose. Power doesn't raise its voice. It arrives, dressed in composure, and leaves in headlines. Inside the boardroom, tension breathes heavier than air. They pretend not to be intimidated, but fear has a scent. Faint, metallic. She takes her seat at the head of the table, not as a guest, but as a force they cannot edit out. One executive stumbles over her title, another over his conscience. The silence that follows isn't awkward, it's judgment. She places her tablet down, slides across a document. Not a complaint, but a contract. She's been negotiating with their rival airline for months. Her technology, her data analytics, her innovation, all now on the edge of becoming their competition's advantage. Her words are not threats, they are mirrors. She doesn't shout or accuse. Instead, she lays truth bare, letting it breathe in the sterile air of corporate denial. Each sentence lands like a quiet explosion. The faces across from her pale not from guilt, but from realization. They underestimated a woman who built her empire out of the very barriers they worshipped. When she finishes, the silence feels holy. For once, they understand. She never needed their apology. She needed their attention. And now, she has both. Downstairs, whispers scatter like paper in wind. Employees crowd near windows, scrolling through headlines, updating in real time. The story they tried to bury has evolved into prophecy. Her name trends beside their brand in a digital tug-of-war, one built on justice, the other on excuses. Yet, amid chaos, she steps into the elevator without haste, carrying the weight of calm revolution. Power has changed hands, and she holds it not as vengeance, but vision. By the time she exits the building, the city no longer feels indifferent. Reporters wait at the steps, microphones pointed like arrows. She doesn't flinch. Cameras flash, and in each burst of light, she sees a new version of herself. No longer a victim of circumstance, but the author of consequence. She pauses, looks into the nearest lens, and says nothing. Her silence speaks louder than every statement the airline will release. History doesn't always arrive with noise. Sometimes it steps out of a revolving door and changes everything. Night drowns the city in reflection. Glass towers shimmering with secrets they can no longer hide. Somewhere in a cramped newsroom, a journalist pieces together fragments of silence. Files buried beneath corporate firewalls, emails redacted into shadows, reports stamped confidential. The deeper he digs, the clearer it becomes. This was never an isolated humiliation. It was routine, systematic, rehearsed through decades of polite prejudice. He pauses, exhausted, but a line from her speech echoes in his head. Some tickets cost more than money. He clicks open one last folder. What spills across the screen is not data. It's proof. Morning light breaks over the city, but peace never follows revelation. The story leaks before he can even verify the final paragraph. Screens explode. Timelines filled with outrage, disbelief, solidarity. The airline's logo becomes synonymous with betrayal. Boardrooms panic, stock prices tremble, and phones buzz like swarms of angry locusts. Yet amid the chaos, she watches from her office, composed. This is not revenge. It's exposure. The difference is intent. Revenge destroys. Exposure transforms. Her silence remains her weapon, and the world keeps amplifying it for her. In the heart of the corporate tower, the facade begins to fracture. Executives huddle in emergency meetings, their power leaking through every unanswered question. One denies involvement, another demands loyalty, but guilt hangs thick in recycled air. The PR director wipes sweat from her brow, the weight of her rehearsed apologies sinking into irrelevance. Truth, once buried, now walks their halls like a ghost refusing to be ignored. For years, they sold civility. Today, they're buying silence. The story has a heartbeat now, pulsing through millions of screens. Protesters gather outside terminals, voices echoing through loudspeakers and hashtags alike. She doesn't attend the rallies. She doesn't need to. Her power is omnipresent. In the unity of strangers, the courage of witnesses, the unmasking of systems that called bias policy. When one woman is denied a seat, the world now understands. It was never about the seat. It was about who was told to stand. You should stand. By dusk, truth is trending across continents. The airline's apology collapses under the weight of evidence. Investors withdraw, partners distance, but one name rises above the ruins, hers. Not because she demanded it, but because she embodied it. As she watches the evening news, her reflection merges with the skyline. The battle she never sought has become her revolution. Some victories are not shouted. They are breathed, softly, through every person who decides never to be quiet again. The call comes at dawn, polished words wrapped in apology. They want a meeting. They want to fix everything, or at least make it look that way. She listens, silent, while her coffee cools. Their tone is desperate, rehearsed, stripped of sincerity. They offer partnership, equity, publicity. But her silence weighs more than any deal they can write. Across the skyline, sunlight cuts through fog, painting the glass towers she once feared to enter. She doesn't smile. She's not here for their redemption. She's here for the truth to stay visible long after the cameras fade. They prepare the stage with precision. Banners, microphones, lights, the illusion of accountability. But the energy is wrong. It's the desperation of a brand pretending to have found its conscience. She walks in unannounced, her presence enough to hush the crowd. Executives stand in tailored remorse. Reporters raise their cameras like confessors. They think she'll accept their peace offering, sign the partnership, and restore balance. But balance was never the goal. Justice was. Flashbulbs ignite. Questions slice through air. She approaches the microphone not to accept, but to dismantle illusion. Her voice cuts steady, deliberate. A melody of truth wrapped in restraint. Partnership doesn't fix perception, she says. It exposes motive. The crowd stills. Executives shift uncomfortably. Every camera lens becomes a mirror, reflecting their fear. She doesn't shout. She never needs to. Her truth lands softly, like thunder muffled by dignity. But every listener feels the quake. The silence after her words feels eternal. Executives whisper frantic damage control, while journalists stream headlines in real time. But she doesn't wait for reaction. She turns, walking off stage, leaving a trail of stunned disbelief. Outside, she exhales for the first time that morning. Somewhere, a billboard flickers with her face beside the headline. The woman who grounded giants. She never wanted fame. She wanted consequence. And now, it's arrived. That night, the world divides. Those who saw a scandal, and those who witnessed a revolution. She sits by her window again. City lights stretching like galaxies below. The world is quieter now, but the silence feels earned. Her inbox fills with messages, partnerships, speeches, campaigns, but she answers none. She's not chasing validation, she's curating legacy. The fight is no longer about her. It's about everyone who ever bought a ticket and was told to prove they belonged. Morning breaks over a city that finally feels awake. The air outside hums with anticipation. Something is shifting. In an apartment far humbler than the glass towers above, a woman rehearses a truth she's hidden too long. The same uniform she once wore with pride now hangs heavy with guilt. Every word she's about to say could cost her everything. But silence has already cost more. She opens her laptop, adjusts her webcam, and begins recording. Her voice trembles at first, then steadies. Confession isn't weakness. It's freedom with a pulse. Her confession spills into the world like wildfire. She names names, describes the training manuals that taught discrimination under the guise of brand image. She admits her silence at that gate, the fear that froze her hands. The internet doesn't crucify her. It crowns her with empathy. She becomes the voice for every employee too afraid to speak. Somewhere across the city, Alana watches in quiet pride. Redemption, she realizes, is never perfect, but it is always possible. By afternoon, the airline trembles under a storm not of outrage, but awakening. Employees send anonymous letters confirming what she exposed. Internal memos leak like open wounds. For the first time, those who enforce silence now beg for understanding. Alana doesn't gloat. She watches, knowing true victory isn't humiliation. It's transformation. One woman spoke, and now an entire system is learning to listen. Later that evening, the two women meet, not as accuser and accomplice, but as survivors of the same silence. Naya expects anger, but Alana offers grace instead. They sit across from each other, the distance between them filled with unspoken forgiveness. "You did what most couldn't," Alana says softly. "You told the truth." Naya's tears finally fall, cleansing years of fear from her face. In that moment, neither power nor apology matters, only understanding. By night, their story transcends headlines. It becomes a symbol, not of anger, but of accountability born from courage. Alana steps onto a small stage at a global summit, not to speak of scandal, but of humanity. "Redemption," she says, isn't granted. It's chosen. The audience rises in silent awe. In the crowd, Nia watches with tears glimmering like starlight. What began as humiliation has become hope. Not just for two women, but for every person who's ever been told they didn't belong. A year later, the world feels quieter. Not because the noise faded, but because change has begun to hum in its place. Airports buzz with new training, new leadership, new consciousness. And in the heart of that shift, her name appears not as a headline, but as a signature. She has acquired the tech supplier that fuels the airline's global systems, the very machinery that once excluded her. What began as insult has become innovation. She doesn't celebrate publicly. Her victory lives in boardrooms now, coded into policy and culture. The woman they once denied entry now controls the doorway. Elsewhere, the airline's headquarters prepare for a merger announcement, one that no one predicted. Their systems, once proprietary, now belong to her. And with quiet grace, she offers collaboration instead of conquest. The same board that once debated her worth now signs her name on their contracts. There's no arrogance in her tone, only steadiness. Empires collapse loudly. Revolutions whisper. She's not here to destroy. She's here to rebuild what they never valued. Integrity. The news spreads slowly, not with outrage but reverence. Commentators call it poetic justice. Activists call it progress. But for her, it's just evolution, the long path from exclusion to empowerment. Reporters ask what it feels like to own the system that once humiliated her. She smiles faintly. Ownership isn't about revenge, she replies. It's about rewriting access. The world listens, not because her story is dramatic, but because it's undeniably human. Months later, she visits the same airport where everything began. The air smells the same. Jet fuel and possibility. People recognize her now, but she moves quietly, humbly, observing small changes, a more diverse staff, new training posters, passengers treated with patience. The gate agent greets her with a smile, scans her ticket without hesitation. For a brief moment, she closes her eyes and breathes. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it sighs, grateful, complete. As the plane ascends, clouds bloom beneath her like soft redemption. She gazes out the window, watching sunlight spill across endless sky. No boundaries, no barriers. Her reflection overlays the horizon, one world merging into another. What began with denial ends with deliverance. She doesn't need applause or vengeance. She carries something rarer. Peace. The world will remember her, not as the woman denied a seat, but as the one who built a better plane,